Hey class, it's Mr. Marshall here. So we're talking about ancient Greece in class. And as we're learning about ancient Greece, we're talking about ancient Greek city-states. And when we're talking about ancient Greek city-states, the two most important and two most powerful Greek city-states are Athens and Sparta. So when we look at Athens and Sparta on a map, they're not that far apart. Like they're pretty close together on a map, but they're pretty far apart when it comes to their values and the type of lifestyles that the people led in ancient Athens and in ancient Sparta. Now, these two Greek city-states shared a lot in common. So they share the same language. They're close together to each other geographically. Only men could serve in the army, and both societies relied on slaves, and both societies elected their own leaders, and they both had assemblies. But in Sparta, they had two kings, and the kings would rule until they either died or they were forced out of office. In ancient Greece, Athens and Sparta fought together against the Persians in war, but also Athens and Sparta fought each other in a war because Athens was expanding and taking over more land. And so Sparta had to fight Athens, and Sparta won that war, but refused to burn Athens to the ground after the war. In Sparta, life was focused on obedience and discipline and military. So for most boys, they would go off to military training at 7 years old. And the reason why they were able to do this is because of slavery. So they were exempt from their industrial duties so that they could focus on their military training. And military training lasted for years. And if a boy lived to adulthood, then he would then leave the military and re-enter back into Spartan society. Now, Sparta was more isolated geographically. They're surrounded by mountains with not as much access to the sea as the Athenians. So the Athenians had both an army and a navy, but they didn't take military training as seriously. Most men did join the army or the navy, but not for as long as Spartan men did. Now, for education, in Sparta, they would educate their girls, and they would physically train their women. There's primary source documents of people who went to ancient Sparta, and they always commented on how strong the women in Sparta were. And the philosophy was, if you're going to have a strong man, it needs to be a strong woman who gives birth to that strong man. In Athens, they were more open to the rest of the world, whereas in Sparta, they were closed off to the rest of the world. So in Athens, they had many ports where people from other places could come in and bring those ideas and new technologies to Athens. And in Athens, you had more freedom to explore arts and sciences, and you were more part of a creative wonderland. Now today, Athens is probably the more famous of the two, as it's known as being the birthplace and cradle of democracy. But both ancient city-states, I feel like, are equally interesting. Which city-state do you feel like you would be a better fit in, Athens or Sparta?